Imagine you're in sprint planning. One of your developers notices that the story points don't add up, but they stay quiet because they don't want to sound difficult. Another teammate has a fresh idea for how to simplify the solution. They keep it to themselves because they're afraid everyone will laugh or shut them down. On the surface, everything looks calm. The sprint gets planned, tasks are divided, and the board looks tidy. But what you're not seeing is the ideas that never got voiced, the risks that never got flagged, and the opportunities that were silently passed over. That invisible silence is what happens when a team lacks psychological safety.
In this video, we'll unpack what psychological safety is, why it matters so much in Scrum and Agile teams, how you can create it, and how to recognize when it's missing. Psychological safety is one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot in leadership books, but in practice it's actually very simple. It's the shared belief within a team that it's safe to speak up, safe to ask a question that might sound basic, safe to raise a concern that might be unpopular, safe to admit a mistake without being punished for it. It doesn't mean everyone has to agree all the time or that conflict disappears. A psychologically safe team still has arguments, but the difference is that those arguments don't threaten people's sense of belonging. You can disagree on the idea without damaging the relationship. People can be real without worrying about consequences to their status or reputation. In Scrum, our entire way of working depends on openness. Sprint reviews only work if stakeholders feel comfortable being honest. Retrospectives only help if the team feels safe pointing out problems. Refinement only improves the backlog if people dare to question whether something really makes sense. I once worked with a team where no one ever challenged the estimates. Every story, no matter how vague, was quickly refined, estimated, and planned. The velocity chart looked stable, management was happy, until delivery dates started slipping. When I asked why no one flagged the risks earlier, one developer admitted, "I didn't want to be the one slowing us down." That's the cost of missing psychological safety. Silence buys you short-term comfort but long-term pain. Building good products is about everyday behaviors. For me, one of the most powerful ways to start is by showing openness yourself. If you make a mistake in prioritization, say it out loud. For example, say, "I pushed this feature too early and it didn't bring the value I thought it would." The moment you admit a mistake in front of your team, you give everyone else permission to do the same. It's like you're lowering the shield for a second, and suddenly others feel safe enough to lower theirs too. Curiosity is another piece. I've seen backlog refinement sessions where everyone nods politely at the story, even though half the people clearly have doubts. A simple question like, "What am I missing here?" can completely change the dynamic. Suddenly, someone pipes up with a concern, another person adds an alternative, and you end up with a stronger solution. When you ask those questions sincerely, you're not just inviting opinions, you're showing that you actually value them. And here's a big one: how you respond to bad news. If a developer says, "This task took twice as long as expected because I made a mistake," and your first reaction is frustration, you've just trained the whole team to keep quiet next time. But if you say, "Thanks for being honest, let's see what we can learn from it," you reinforce that speaking up is not just safe, it's appreciated. I once had a tester who nervously admitted she'd missed a regression that made it into production. Instead of blame, we focused on improving our automated test suite. That turned what could have been a moment of fear into a moment of growth. Feedback is another cornerstone. I don't mean the annual performance review kind of feedback, I mean regular, casual check-ins. When feedback becomes part of the team's rhythm, it stops being scary. In one team, we used the retrospective not only to discuss process, but also to highlight something a teammate had done that made our work easier that sprint. Those small acknowledgments built a culture where giving and receiving feedback felt natural, not threatening. And don't underestimate recognition. It's easy to celebrate finished features or shipped releases, but it's just as important to recognize the courage it takes to speak up. When someone raises a risk no one else saw, or dares to challenge an assumption, call that out. Say, "I really appreciate you bringing that up." Over time, people learn that raising their voice isn't risky, it's valued. These things might sound small, but they compound. Openness, curiosity, good reactions to mistakes, normalizing feedback, and recognizing contributions. They weave together to create an environment where people feel safe to show up fully. And when that happens, your team's potential changes completely. You can usually spot the lack of psychological safety if you pay close attention. Meetings where no one asks questions are a giveaway. Daily stand-ups where updates sound robotic. Yesterday, I did this. Today, I'll do that. No blockers. Even when you know problems exist, that's another. Blame is another big indicator. I once saw a sprint review where a senior manager asked why a feature was late, and the developer immediately pointed at the tester. That's not just a bad moment, that's a culture problem. In safe teams, the language shifts. It's not, she didn't finish, it's we didn't finish. That tiny difference tells you whether the team feels safe owning problems together. Psychological safety is the foundation of real agility. Without it, Scrum becomes theater. People follow the rituals, but the real conversations never happen. With it, you get honesty, innovation, and resilience. As a product owner, you can't manufacture safety overnight, but you can shape the conditions. You do it by how you react when someone brings bad news, by whether you show vulnerability yourself, and by whether you celebrate the courage it takes to speak up. So the next time your team goes quiet in a meeting, ask yourself, is it because everything is clear, or is it because it doesn't feel safe to raise concerns? That simple question might be the start of building a stronger, healthier team. And if you'd like more practical ways to energize your Scrum team, check out my Udemy course. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and tell me in the comments, what's one thing you do to help your team feel safe to speak up?